often in people, so it's new to me.
I want you to. I'm going to send
you.
you this link, by the way, just so that way you'll have it, Val. So forever it'll be you. Yeah.
I mean, literally, I feel like there's a couple of people who inspire me, and I have to say it's you and Andrew Zimmern. You guys are like, I don't know, Chef Andrew Zimmern.
Yeah.
He inspires me through the food, but like when I read your stuff, and English was my worst. English and history, I hate spelling. I hate big words, but when I read your stuff, I know what it means, and it helps me become better when I speak. I feel my heart.
Well, yeah, I'm glad to hear that, and I think you're doing great work yourself. I mean, you got a lot of passion and commitment and just positive energy, and it seems to be going well. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
So you feel better now?
I do. I just can't believe that I'm talking to Benjamin Hill. I'm always talking about Benjamin Hill, and now I'm talking to what a shift.
She's not kidding about that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's good for my ego. I spend most of the day being like, oh, I'm still doing this, and in a larger company structure that doesn't really care that much what I do. So it's nice to be reminded that
you do make an impact on a lot of us, my friend. You do.
Yeah.
So you do.
Just so you know.
Is there anybody there?
All right. Well, welcome everybody to yet another episode of the Data Chronicles. My name is Ed. With me, I got my good friend, my co-host, Val, Stadium Foot Girl. What's going on, my girl?
I'm so excited right now.
You guys have to. This is too funny. I'm gonna put this on the video because this is good because she is geeking out right now over our guest, and our guest today is the one and only Ben Hill. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing all right. Gearing up for another season as one does in March. That's we're in the rhythms of baseball here.
I love it. And actually, at the time of this recording, which is the 3rd of March, we were just starting discussion that where the AAA championship is going to take place. So we'll tell you a little story about that later, how I was supposed to be there and never went because of Hurricane Helene. So thanks, Hurricane Helene, for that.
And how I met Tyler Mon, and it was so cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tyler, he hopefully he'll be back on the call in 2025. But on March 3rd, seeing a press release for a minor league game taking place September 27th, that feels like it might as well be a decade from now. It feels so long away. But then what happens is the season starts, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe we're already here. It's that weird tension between the season feeling so long and so short at the same time.
Ben, I want to start the podcast by just getting to know a little bit about you, and then how you got to be where you're at, right? Excuse me, I apologize. One of the things is we've always wondered, how does one get into working for, well, now Major League Baseball, but minor league baseball? How did you get started in that?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell the very short version, the very long version. I guess I'll go for something in between. But whenever I try to tell a story, it's kind of convoluted. And what it comes down to is my job, which I've come to define as covering the business and culture of minor league baseball, is not something that ever existed before I started doing it. And nor did I have some master plan going in to create that. I graduated from college with a communications degree, went to the University of Pittsburgh, didn't really know what I was doing with my life, worked in education for a number of years through a convoluted set of circumstances, which is another story. I got an opportunity to move to New York. Then I was, in my 20s trying to figure out what to do in New York, kept doing education for a while, started temping after I decided I didn't want to work in education. So long story short, I'm a guy in my mid-20s just trying to find something that'll stick, trying to justify my existence, trying to get by in New York City. So I was saying yes to any opportunity that came my way, and I was working a lot of temp jobs, random one-off gigs. And I got a call from a friend of mine saying, hey, I'm writing game recaps for a new minor league baseball website. They need more people. You seem like you could be a good writer. I know you love baseball. So do you want to do it? And so I just said, sure. And they just hired me on the spot because there had never been a website before that was covering just minor league baseball. No one really knew what they were doing. I had my friend's recommendation, who, side note, that friend was Zach Hample, who I'd met on Craigslist, kind of pre-social media era, because he posted looking for someone to play baseball with. He didn't put his name on that post. I didn't know who it was, but it turned out to be Zach Hample. So that's a weird kind of side note with my whole job, is that I literally got this job in 2005 through a recommendation from famous ball hawk Zach Hample, who I had met on Craigslist. I mean, that's really how I got my job. But I thought I'd just do it for a couple of months and the season would end and they'd send us home, but they didn't send us home. Then I started coming in during the day because I didn't understand why we were working at night with no games. Then I was the only writer during the day, and I started getting assigned stories where I started to learn a bit more about, the other side of minor league baseball, like new team names and that kind of stuff. And then the next season, I was like the daytime game recap writer, and I got asked to write a promo column. And that's where it all started, really. I got to write a weekly column of like 10 things happening in minor league baseball. And I just was immediately drawn to it because there were teams were doing so many ridiculous things. As a writer, instead of just writing game recaps, which don't allow for much flair or humor, I could make jokes about what was going on, pop culture references, that kind of thing. And then I learned that the teams were reading what I was doing because, unbeknownst to me, who was just trying to get a paycheck and work some jokes into my writing, no one had ever really done what I was doing, like covering what teams were doing in real time. So people in the industry started to read it because they wanted to know what other teams were doing, throughout the season. And then the sort of the interest of the industry kind of gave me, I definitely wouldn't say clout, but a little momentum or leverage as I kept going, knowing that the teams themselves, liked what I was doing. So then it was kind of more justified. So I spun my wheels, kept trying to build it up, start a blog, still part-time for a lot of years, finally got full-time around the age of 30. And then after that, I was like, well, this is okay. This is actually going to be my job. I should try to visit these places because I can't be this expert on a nationwide industry without having been to these places. And so I started doing road trips in 2010, and then one thing led to another, and I just kept doing that and kind of established this job as the guy who covers the business and culture of minor league baseball, the fans, the food, the promotions, the history, pretty much everything but the game itself, even though, of course, I love baseball, but I leave the actual game coverage to my colleagues.
When you first started doing the road trips and all that, was this all on your dime? Like you were just like, I'm going to go, and then,
No, in the very, very beginning, a lot of it was when I was still part-time and saying, like, I need to make something happen here.
I got
because, I was young compared to how old I am now, but I did not feel young at the time. I was in my late 20s at this point. I went through some breakups. I was in a pretty precarious position. So I was just like, I have to make this happen, whether it's through this employment or something else. So some of my first trips were just things I did locally or local-ish around the New York City area that I just did on my own. But the actual trips, when I say 2010, that's when I was able to get a little of a road trip budget to do it in conjunction with becoming full-time and, covering all of minor league baseball as my beat.
Obviously, you have been to a lot of cities, and I have not been to a lot of cities yet. I just picture them when I'm listening to, the podcast and stuff. Do you have maybe even 3 cities that you have been to and you're just like, I can't stop thinking about these cities? And maybe there's cities that I haven't been to yet, but then I have that to look forward to.
There's so many, it kind of blurs, and often I don't get enough of a chance to explore a city as I would really like. But yeah, I always looked at it as like, I've been living in New York City now for over 22 years. So I'd often go on these road trips and just be in a city for a day or two and love it. But I always looked at it as like, I was flirting with that other city, but my long-term relationship was always back. New York City was always like, get home, come on.
We need you to get home right now.
Yeah. So I always looked at it that as like little flirtations. So maybe superficial. So I could just name so many that in a small amount of time just made me think like this place is is awesome. I mean, I think Durham and the greater Durham era, not to mention the Durham Bulls. But that seemed like a lot of culture and art and history around there, and not to mention a ton of baseball and the way you can move between urban and more rural areas in not too much of time. It seemed like a real, diversity of experience, not just in terms of the population, but in terms of the landscape and the way people live. I like places like that. I like the kind of cities that have, a reputation for kind of weirder people living there. Eugene, is kind of a great countercultural city with some interesting history that I like. Visiting places like that. Their history with the hippies of the '60s and all the countercultural protests and drug usage that took place out there. El Paso, I thought was great because growing up in the Northeast, I'd never really had a real sense of what like a border city was like, and I was just blown away in a way that almost seems a little naive or childlike. I was just like, I can't believe it. That's Mexico right there. That's a whole
right
nother,
there.
Yeah, and it just having that then come to life, that realization of like that's what it's like. I mean, I knew that was what it was like, but just seeing the divide between the two countries and Juarez right there, and one of the times I visited, walking to Mexico and back just in the span of a night was just like a cool thing to do. And similarly, Vancouver. I mean, if you want to go in the other direction, I love visiting that. What a beautiful city. And, the only city that's out of the United States in minor league baseball. So, rare opportunity to use my passport, which I always enjoy. But yeah, questions like that, I could just riff, go in a million directions. But those are a few that came to my mind.
Two takeaways from that. One, real quick, El Paso, you chose one of my best friends as your designated eater. And he said it was one of the greatest experiences ever. And he was like, I have a Benjamin Hill t-shirt. And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. But I don't know if you remember him. His name is Chuck.
Yeah. I remember Chuck, and he's got a daughter, at least one daughter, I remember.
Yeah.
And really nice guy.
An episode that you did with a team, and you were talking about this city, and now this city is so high up on my bucket list, and I don't know if it's on a lot of people's bucket list, but for me, it's like I'm always looking at flights. Specifically, the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. I remember an episode that you did, and you were interviewing the CMO, and then you were talking about, I think it was like you were doing this either before the game or after the game. You went to downtown, and I think you were at a cheese curd shop, and I'm not kidding. When you were talking about this cheese curd shop, I was just like, I cannot wait, because I love Wisconsin. And just the way you were talking about it, I was just, this stadium in this city has to be up so high on my bucket list. Forget Miami, I don't want to say New York, but Miami.
I was just going to say, don't do that now. Don't
I mean,
don't offend the guy's plays.
No, but that's what the minor leagues is all about. Like, kind of forget New York, forget Miami, forget Los Angeles.
It's the small towns.
And go to places that you wouldn't ordinarily get to go. And that's been a big, kind of thesis statement for me through the years is that minor league baseball, or, not just the minor leagues, but minor league baseball is a great contextualizer to give you the motivation to go to places that you ordinarily wouldn't go. Like, you wouldn't just think to go on vacation to Appleton, Wisconsin, but then once you're there, just to use Val's example, once you're there, you're like, okay, this is a fun place to be. I remember I went to a Harry Houdini museum there because Houdini, the great magician, lived there for a while. Yes, obviously a lot of cheese, really nice little downtown near a college with, I love pinball. I remember playing a pinball bar in Appleton, and so on and so forth. Is like literally every single place has much to recommend about it. And, I've always kind of, I don't want to say offended, but a lot of times when I tell people my itineraries, and they'll pick up on a spot and be like, "Ooh, good luck there." And I'm kind of like, well, I don't have to go live there. And there's people who
just gotta go visit.
Yeah. And so why wouldn't I be happy to visit there? And why wouldn't I want to come away with a positive impression? I don't ever want to act blind to what, the negative aspects of a certain area. But doing this sort of job, it's about celebrating the positive, and there's positivity about everywhere. And to sound very corny about it, I just like people, and I like the American people. And I just feel everywhere I go, I like everybody. And I know, yes, I'm doing a job that's easy to be liked and to like others because it's through baseball. It's a fun thing, but it just helps a lot. When people are online too much and, so tied up in the division going on, politically and socially. And not to say that's not a real thing, but I think just going out to live events, of course, minor league baseball, but just live events in general, you just feel like, man, this reality on the ground doesn't really match in a lot of cases what we think to be the reality day in and day out, only learning about the worst things and pitting groups against one another. I just like to be out in America and feel good about everybody.
Let me ask you, obviously you get to travel, you get to do all this fun stuff and all that. But like, my question to you is obviously you start, the end of the season starts and like you start to plan out where you're going to go and all that. Like, I mean, that takes a lot of work. So like, what's your process on where you want to go each year? So that way you're like, all right, so here's the minor league systems that I'm going to go to this year. How do you go through all of that?
Yeah, it is. That's a big plan for this week, and especially really starting tomorrow, and kind of have a planning session with my coworker Josh on Wednesday. And I'm trying to figure that out right now. It is one of the most frustrating things I do every year. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's in the service, is something I greatly enjoy, but
it's still frustrating.
It's very frustrating to make those itineraries. I mean, and now that, I'm older and do my job a little differently than I used to in certain ways, and now I have a kid, my son just turned 4. It's harder to do things the way I used to, because I was single for most of, like, when I first started the road trips, and for a lot of years I was for the most part single, and it made it so much easier just to not worry about larger, like, oh, I can't do it this day. So between family stuff and his childcare, and then just home road schedules drive me crazy. You look at a region that you want to hit and you think you have an itinerary, and then like you just can't quite line up the home and the road. And the 6-game homestands now make that a little more difficult, because you can't like just kind of mix and match with 3-game sets and home and road changing a little bit more. So where I decide to go, I mean, there's different variables every year, but the main thing is, I try to visit places I haven't been before. So this year, after a couple of years with no new ballparks, we got 4 new ballparks coming up in 2025. So my trips will be centered around the new ballparks, and then places I can get to in the immediate, or not immediate, but in the general range of those new ballparks. So probably at least 3 of the trips I do this year will be based around those 4 ballparks. I think one of the trips I can get 2 new ballparks in, but whatever. So that's how it'll be. But Salt Lake's a bit of a tough one, just that's a pretty isolated area as minor league baseball goes. But looking to get to Salt Lake, looking to get to Knoxville, looking to get to Spartanburg, and looking to get to Columbus, Georgia. So I imagine those 4 will be at least 3 trips in and of themselves. And then the other one, I'll just try to pick a region that I haven't been to for a long time, or if there's some particular promotion that a team is doing that I just feel this can't miss, maybe something like that. But for a lot of my road trips, it's not about a specific promotion. It's just about capturing a team at a moment in time, and not so much about like, I have to go when they do this crazy thing, So we'll see. Hopefully in a week's time, I have a much more
concrete, or at least
concrete answer, because I need to get this nailed down so I can just plan the rest of my life all the way into September.
Around then.
Yeah, because then little things come up. People be like, oh, there's this concert on August 23rd. And I'll be like, I don't know. I just need to have these trips locked in sooner than later. So I'll probably do, and I do less than I used to now for the reasons I mentioned earlier, but I'll probably do one trip a month, probably in May, June, July, and August. And then maybe some
sprinkled in between.
Yeah, maybe smaller local stuff as needed.
Nice.
That is so great that Salt Lake is probably on your radar this year, because it's also on mine.
Oh, nice. Maybe we can cross paths.
Maybe you'll be a designated eater, if you do make it.
I would love to be your designated eater, and I can tell you why in just a few sentences. Why I would be a great pick.
Well, I pretty much already know why you'd be a great pick. I've seen your stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I think that's pretty simple.
yeah, I mean, me being older, and coming at this from more of a writing first perspective, like I struggle sometimes with like the Instagram and the videos, and I'm working on it and getting a little better. But like Val, I see your stuff, and I'm like, man, I got to incorporate more of that kind of stuff, like to the food stuff, the designated eater stuff I do, because it's yeah, there's just so much I'm trying to capture in one night, and it's hard to give everything its due. And sometimes, I see stuff you do, and I'm like, man, I wish I had the skill and time to really dive in a little bit more, as opposed to just like one or two 20-second videos of someone just biting a cheeseburger. But I
I
do
will
what I
send you all the tips.
No, be
can.
careful what you wish for. You'll write a whole book on tell you. Honestly, though, she has helped me a lot into my development on my YouTube channel and Instagram, just because of the tips she has given me. So
I'm still learning, but I will send you all the tips.
Yeah, I need some. It's been ramping up the last couple of years, and there's been times now that I'm joined on the road by what we call an MLB LCC, a live content coordinator. So on certain trips, like I have a little outside help, and so for video stuff which is helpful. But yeah, when it's just me and a phone and 10 other things on my checklist, it can be hard to do
yeah, I bet.
as detailed as I would like to. But yeah, having a designated eater, that's been one of the great joys of my career. Just all the people I've met through that concept of just having people eat for me at a minor league baseball game.
I'm sure that designated eater, they hate it every step of the way.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, kind of like what I was saying when this call started. I'm usually in my own head and feeling like, I don't know, here I go. Is this worthwhile? But then meet designated eaters who are like, this is on my bucket list. And I'm like, what? Like, because it's hard for me to look at what I do with the level of importance that sometimes other people look at it. So it's good to get myself out of my own head and be like, yeah, this does have value. Because a crazy thing is that I'm going to be July will be my 20th anniversary from when I was hired part-time, and I just can't believe I'm still doing this. It just never seemed like it would be my whole career, and now I'm fully in middle age and in my 40s, and I'm like, well, no, dude, this is your career.
That's not a part-time job. This is your full-on. This is your career here.
Yeah, it took me a long time to really realize that and accept it. For so long, it just felt like something that kind of happened until the next thing, and then I realized, like, no, this is the thing, man.
And I have to say, like, when I say it's life-changing, it really, like you just said, you don't realize that it's bucket list things for other people. But like, for example, okay, so not to put him on the spot, but my fiance is not a minor league fan. Boo, it sucks. Well, he's learning now, but because we put on those show before the show podcasts on these road trips, and I know he acts like he's not listening, but then he'll hear these team names and these cities and these things, and then I catch him like, I was looking at plane tickets to the Iowa Cubs, and I'm like, oh, so you know who the Iowa Cubs are now. And so it is like, even when you think you're not changing lives, Benjamin Hill, you really are changing
At the
lives.
very least, you're affecting them, or like you're helping them out, right? Because right, like we all listen to the podcast and everything. You listen to the stories and everything that you bring. My question to you is, like, the last couple of years, what has been your most memorable, because I know you also follow like the changes of team names and things like that. For you, like that, like it has been your favorite, like your personal favorite team name brand that you've seen so far.
In more recent years, or
more recent years, or actually, you know what? Change it to whenever.
It's a good one. There's so many that I'm usually just so focused on covering them, I often forget my own opinion on them. Like it's hard for me to kind of sometimes take a step back and be like, oh, what do I?
Because right,
really
you're
like?
Covering them, but you're also a fan of the sport.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's the thing with all this. Even though I don't get to watch much baseball when I'm on the road, ironically, when I'm at a minor league ballpark, I don't really get to watch much baseball. But yeah, I grew up a just gigantic baseball fan, and didn't really know the minor leagues too much, but I liked the weirder nooks and crannies of baseball in general. So it kind of made sense that once this opened up, I took it and ran with it, because I've always been just really into the oddities and absurdities of the game of baseball. But for the team names, I mean, yeah, there's been so many good ones. I mean, hey, just to name drop El Paso again. I remember when they had the list of name finalists, and Chihuahuas was one of them. Right now, we don't think twice when we hear the name El Paso Chihuahuas. But
No.
10 years ago, 11 years ago, it was part of what was then sort of a cliche with name the teams, is that there'd be 3 or 4 choices and then one that was just too crazy that team wouldn't actually do. And I remember it being like, haha, they have Chihuahuas on the list, but they won't really do it. No one's expecting that. And then they did it. And that was kind of like a moment of like, whoa, minor league baseball is going there. Minor league baseball is like now unafraid to have a team named the Chihuahuas. And of course, we talk about it now, and it doesn't even seem like that big a deal. But that one was one that made an impression on me, and I always like that branding and the kind of underdog identity. Hartford Yard Goats is one I always just like, aesthetically, just the way it looks. And I love that ballpark too in Hartford, Dunkin' Donuts Park. So that's one that definitely jumped out. I mean, I think the pinnacle of sort of that school of minor league team names is Trash Pandas. I mean, once you do Rocket City Trash Pandas, that's kind of, hey, they're about space. And I feel like Trash Pandas was like the final frontier. Like it's harder to go beyond Trash Pandas. And I think since then, really, we've seen maybe a slight kind of more conservative view in team names since then. They can still be pretty goofy, but I feel all those years where it was just like, what are teams going to do next? I think it kind of hit either the peak or the bottom, depending on your opinion of that kind of team name, with Trash Pandas. But yeah, it's so this year we got Hub City Spartan Burgers is new. Columbus Clingstones is new. I thought Rome Emperors was a great one because it has like a kind of serious and heavy feel when you hear the name Rome Emperors, but then it also has the more lighthearted minor league Penguin branding. So I thought that was a good best of both worlds thing. And of course, I like it anytime a team, brands away from its parent club name, because that's just not very interesting.
100%. We are on. I know for sure that I'm a fan of like having no name of a parent club on a minor league baseball team. So, question. Then obviously, like you said, like, the pinnacle is Trash Pandas, right? Trash, and then you got Pandas. Like, I mean, that's just as far as out there as it goes. And in some, recent like 2 years, you've seen a little bit more seriousness to the actual team name. But let me ask you this: in your opinion, does that leave those quirky names more towards the alternate identities that they do one-offs for every year? Does that allow for the alternate identities to have its own space within minor league baseball now?
I mean, I think you could look at it that way, but I don't think a team with a already kind of goofier cartoonish name has been like discouraged from doing alternate identities because they're already kind of wacky. Like the Akron Rubber Ducks, they're going to be the Rubber Ducks every day, but they're still have no problem with being any number of alternate identities. But I do think that, yes, that if you have a more conservative, for lack of a better word, identity than the alternate identities that are goofy, then there's a greater contrast or a way to stand out, at least in the local market, a little bit more. But in general, I think a team's approach to alternate identities doesn't have too much to do with what their primary identity is. It's just a way to, draw attention to themselves, create excitement, and of course, sell merchandise. Because at the end of the day, baseball's a business. So, I totally understand when fans don't like some of these things, but when they just say like, "Oh, this is just another money grab," I'm kind of like, well, I would say that the purpose of a business is to make money. These are not like, 501c3 nonprofit organizations. They're not, just there for
these are full for-profit.
Yeah. So
entities.
I feel like go for it. And, just like anything else, like the market will decide if you're doing too many of them or they're not well received, then you'll do less, but as long as fans like them, as long as fans buy the merchandise, as long as there's like a good energy in the ballpark when they do this kind of thing, why not keep doing it? It certainly doesn't hurt anybody.
Like you say, you're going on 20 years, doing this. How have you seen the evolution of merchandising from when you started to right now, 2025?
I mean, it's been a lot. I mean, we've kind of talked about it already with both team
Yeah.
names and alternate identities. 2005, there weren't that many like goofy team names, really. I
Yeah.
mean, you had your classic teams, like the Toledo Mud Hens or whatever, but
Mudcats and things like that. Yeah.
yeah, but when you think of most of when you start rattling off like the real goofy names, those all came about like in the time that I've been covering minor league baseball. Your Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs and El Paso Chihuahuas and Pensacola Blue Wahoos and Rocket City Trash Pandas and on. Hartford Yard Goats, Akron Rubber Ducks, Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. So that whole kind of revolution, for lack of a better word, in terms of the teams really going out of their way to establish a distinct identity, which is a huge part of their marketing and branding. That's happened, in the 2 decades, not to mention the alternate identities, which were literally not a thing when I started. And so now, in addition to perhaps having a more unique standalone primary identity, now you have all these other ways to, market yourself through the alternate identities as well. So none of those things, existed at the time. But you could also make an argument that in certain ways, minor league baseball was weirder and wackier then, though, when like 20 years ago, just in terms of the day-to-day atmosphere, the day-to-day promotions. I feel like teams did a lot more like off-the-cuff, goofy stuff, that now it's a more, controlled environment, and it's run through MLB, and, more approvals are needed. And it's just a bit different in that regard as well, where it used to just be like teams would just do the most nonsensical promos all the time just to get some attention to themselves. And it's not as wild west out there as it was when I first started. I mean, I always tell the story, like the first ballpark I ever visited, I was still part-time, was Altoona, because they were doing Awful Night, and that was the kind of energy I was really attracted to in minor league baseball. Just like something so stupid, like a team just is doing a promotion where they're going to make everything, quote, as awful as possible. Some teams still do that kind of stuff, and I always celebrate it whenever I can, because I like that kind of more anything goes, why the heck not kind of energy, in addition to the national initiatives and larger season-long campaigns and everything like that. I think there's a place for everything.
Oh, yeah. On that same note, like, have you noticed that I've only been going to minor league games for about 10 years, but I never started paying attention to the food until I moved to Las Vegas. Shout out to Chef Gary for like teaching me how great foods in minor league could be. Have you noticed a shift since you started from like how foods used to be to how they are now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think, well, one, a lot of it has to do with ballparks. In the 90s and throughout the first part of the 21st century, there were a lot of new ballparks, and that means a lot of different things. But new ballparks often had much more kitchen space. So I think, a lot of older ballparks and the cliche of just a hot dog, hamburger, pretzels, popcorn, and a beer, some of that might have been due to lack of creativity, but a lot of it was because these old ballparks, if you're playing in some
restrictive
ballpark built in 1936, you're only going to have so much space to make food. So I think the sort of wave of new ballparks created the opportunity to be more creative in the kitchen. And then teams, especially with the rise of the internet and social media, saw the value in getting more creative with their food. Even if it might not sell a ton, the more creative items might not sell a ton in the ballpark. They were really good marketing to be like, you can get this crazy food item at this place or that place. And then as we saw, like talking about alternate identities, obviously the biggest subgenre of minor league teams' alternate identities are food-related alternate identities. And so that's because, teams like to celebrate what's unique about their market, about their region, and food is always going to be in the conversation when it comes to what makes a place unique. So I think teams have more and more leaned in to making sure they have at their ballpark things that are unique or local to their area. I think one aspect of the food that kind of peaked and we don't see as much is just the crazy large, go viral on social media. Like it's like, the quadruple bypass burger. It's 4 patties and cheese and egg and topped with a large order of fries. I feel like that stuff kind of peaked maybe 10 or 12 years ago because it would go viral, but then fans wouldn't really buy it. Yeah, then it'd be expensive and fans wouldn't really buy it too much. And didn't have a local or regional tie. So it kind of was like, okay,
Maybe
kind of
not.
move on from that. Yeah.
When you go to these ballparks, do you collect something for yourself?
I don't. I get asked that a lot. If I had known when I started this that I would be doing it this long, I would have liked to have come up with something small. But like I was saying earlier, by the time I kind of figured out
Yeah.
that this was actually my job, I was so deep into it, I hadn't really thought that much ahead. Also, I live in New York City, and especially now,
You're very restricted.
yeah, I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment with my wife and 4-year-old, and we're trying to figure out our next move. But it's tough to like add too much to it. So I have packed in my closets. I need to go through it. An amazing array of just minor league memorabilia, but almost none of it did I seek out. It's more just like a team that gave this to me, or it just happened to be something tucked in my notebook at the end of the night. And so I love having all this random stuff, but I have drawers of bobbleheads I need to either get rid of or find a space for. I'm at max capacity. But to answer your question, since I had a kid, my son Harry, now when I go to a ballpark, I buy him a T-shirt, and that's been fun for me. That's the first time in my career that I've had kind of like that kind of thing. And so sometimes they don't have it in his size, and obviously he's always growing. But I've gotten him a bunch of T-shirts over the last several years, and we keep them. And the plan is to make them into a quilt.
Oh, that's cool.
I hope Jill takes the lead on that. That's the kind of thing I think is a good idea, and then make no proactive effort to actually do it
whatsoever.
Yeah, but I love that idea. So I take pride just dropping him off at school, just kind of like, yep, he's the only kid here in this Brooklyn 3K program with a Fort Wayne tin cap shirt.
Obviously, you've been doing it for, like I said, we've been talking about it. Your tenure with baseball is. What's the one memorable team that's no longer around that you were like when you went and it's like it's no longer around?
Quite a lot, and I miss most of them. One I only went to once, but I loved it was Bakersfield Blaze at San Stadium. Because from a realistic, stadium facility amenity standpoint, it really shouldn't have been hosting minor league baseball as long as it did. But I've always liked those kind of places. The old kind of beat up places might not have big crowds, but to me, the fans who show up at those places are always like the weirdos, which I mean in the best way. As a writer, I'm always looking for like interesting people. And so I think about that ballpark and, literally having a sun delay in the beginning of the game because the ballpark was built facing the sun, being in the press box with like full, shades that were pulled all the way down because people couldn't even look out onto the field. I just love that kind of goofy stuff. And, what was it? Their program vendor, this guy named Froggy with this real deep voice selling programs, and on and on. Just I like the more ramshackle places and then those are the places that once they're gone, you're like, it's never coming back, at least not at this ballpark, at least affiliated ball.
Yeah.
So places like that, places like Jamestown, kind of same thing.
Jammers.
Yeah, the Jammers, just a little ballpark, 80 years old in a small New York town. I always felt sad saying hello and goodbye to places like that, knowing that they wouldn't be part of the landscape anymore.
I still got my Jamestown Jammers dad hat.
Yeah, amazing logo. Absolutely amazing.
Such a good logo. You would like that one, actually, Val.
Speaking of, I'm still mourning the, I guess, like loss or disappearance of the baby cakes. That was one I will forever regret, like not being able to go to.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah,
because New Orleans is a huge market, but a tough minor league baseball market because think of everything New Orleans has going on. It's tough for a minor league team to stand out within that, especially when your ballpark is in a neighboring suburb, not near any of the typical New Orleans action. So I only got to go there once, and they were still the Zephyrs when I went. I never got to go to a game in the short-lived Baby Cakes era.
Right. Just because, like you said, just like you have so many teams that you have to go visit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing is teams are like, when are you coming back again? Or I'll be emailing a team about something. They're like, hey, you should come by this year. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's only been 8 years, but also probably not because there's just so many other places to get to. It's wild. It's wild. There's certain teams that it's been over a decade now. And I can't believe I've been doing it long enough to have teams that I've gone a decade without visiting.
When you are visiting other stadiums and you've got the designated eaters, is there do you choose the foods? Is it based off bestsellers, new items, that viral item, or do you kind of just let the fans choose and it's something that they've recommended, especially if it's been at a ballpark you've never been to?
I'd say every aspect of my job, it's a case by case basis. Pretty much all these different elements that I do at these ballpark visits are ones I kind of made up and then had to figure out. And teams are different from place to place. So generally, I'll just tell a team and I'll have a designated eater, someone who will sample the food. And some teams are well aware of the concept and they're psyched for it, and they, give us an empty suite and have the food and beverage person bring a gigantic platter. Sometimes the teams are just kind of yeah, cool, have fun. And then me and the designated eater just wander around. And, I never want to act like a diva. There's sometimes, though, when I'm waiting in line with my designated eater being really? You're going to make Ben's business designated eater wait in line? Come on. But, yeah, so it really runs the gamut from just us on our own to VIP food spread. But no matter what the context is, it's always I want to highlight what's the most unique and or regional. And so if the designated eater is familiar with the place, I'm very open to their feedback. But if a designated eater just says, oh, I like ketchup, hot dog with ketchup, and that's it, it's just no, then you're not really going to be the designated eater. We need someone to highlight something unique.
Because you need to try the uniqueness of the place.
Yeah. So, and almost every team, obviously some are much better than others, but almost every team has at least 2 or 3 items that are unique to them, or if not totally unique to them, different enough that you can highlight it. That's the underlying premise, no matter how it shakes out, is what's the most unique thing we can get, and get 2 or 3 things. That's really it. Sometimes it's more, but I don't have the bandwidth to highlight 11 things on a menu in the course of everything else going on.
Yeah, you gotta be specific about what you need and what you want, to highlight within your article and everything.
Whenever you go to Hub, as a Rangers fan, I'm so excited for the Hub City Spartan Burgers. I haven't done research, but I cannot wait to see I'm assuming they're gonna have specialty burgers, different kinds of unique burgers. I'm so excited to see that, and hopefully, they do have that. And so I can imagine
they definitely have burgers. Yeah, I mean, that talking.
You have to at this point. If you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to their GM, Tyson Jeffers. He was previously in Hudson Valley, and he was just saying that, pressure's on. You can't pick this name and call yourself the Spartan Burgers and not have the best ballpark burger around. So we'll see if they live up to it.
What did I tell you?
There you go.
Up. I told you she showed up. So, Ben, is there anything that we haven't asked you at all? I know we ask you a lot of questions, so.
Not any one specific thing I can think of. Obviously, there's
plenty of things that we can talk about. We could be
theoretically,
here for 2 hours.
A million things you could theoretically talk about, but it seems like we've hit a lot.
I love it. When you do go to Spartan Burger, let me know. I am here in the Durham, Raleigh-Durham area. So, you mentioned Durham, and I'm like, that's right. Let's go. So.
Yeah, it's great. It was great to get. I was in Durham last year for the first time in years, and what a beautiful ballpark. I knew that already, but just to have that reinforced and be back after a long absence,
such a gorgeous ballpark. Are you ready, my friend?
Sure.
All right. So this one is the one that we ask everybody. Okay, so you're not working. You're in New York. You're going to go to a ballpark. What is your food and your drink of choice?
Well, again, for me,
it's going to be difficult.
Right. The whole reason the designated eater concept started was because I got diagnosed with celiac disease. So a lot of my own ballpark options are lesser. But even if I hadn't been diagnosed, nachos are going to be way up there anyway. And now they're even more elevated in my ballpark cuisine choices. So I would say good ballpark nachos. Ones with, more fresh ingredients. The the real bottom of the barrel nachos have their place, but it's a little frustrating when you get nachos and it's just like a dollop of cheese in a little
And that's it.
plastic container. But
Yep.
no, good nachos for sure. Of course, I appreciate when teams have gluten-free hamburger or hot dog buns. Drink, if I'm just there as a fan, yeah, I'd like a drink. Sometimes I'm at these ballparks and I'm like, I just want to sit in the stands and drink, and I never can on these road trips. So
because you're representing, minor league baseball at that point.
Yeah. So, I can't really do many beers, but a cider or a seltzer. So yeah, give me a nachos and a seltzer. Let's go with that.
I like it.
Good pick.
Last song that you downloaded.
I don't really download many songs. I buy a lot of records. I can't remember what I downloaded.
Wait, you said you buy records now?
Oh, constantly. Yeah, I have like many.
What's the last one you purchased then?
The last one I purchased was actually my son Harry has gotten into like Beethoven and classical music, so I got him just like at a book sale in a church. I got him a Beethoven, Leonard Bernstein directing Beethoven's Seventh Symphony, I believe, was actually the last record I bought. But yeah, I buy a lot of records. I used to go to a lot of record stores on my road trips, but I ended up with so many records that I just
you're like, you gotta have to take a break.
So I could go on and on about music. I don't know. I was listening to a Bismarcky record I got just yesterday. So from Bismarcky to Beethoven to
a wide range.
Million other things. Yeah, I got too many records, too many CDs. I got a 6-disc changer in my Subaru.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm a physical media guy.
I remember I used to have one, and then they broke into my car and they stole it. I'm like, oh, those were the days. With my CD book, opening up the CD book and going through that. Oh.
Yeah, Case Logic.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Have you ever regifted a gift?
Yeah, I'm sure I have. I mean, and some of it is definitely like, I'm at a minor league ballpark and a team's just like, hey, here, have a hat. And I'm like, cool, thanks, but I don't need another hat. And then I give it to a friend or a family member who might. I do a lot of regifting of baseball things in particular.
Yeah, I'm not regifting my hats. I tell you that. I have well over 600 of them, and I'm nope, not getting rid of the hats.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people like you through this job, the hat obsessives. But
you met Patrick Larson, one of our good friends in Georgia.
Yeah, Patrick Larson, Eric the Peanut Guy, Show Before the Show co-host Tyler Mon, all these guys. For me, I'm someone who just usually has like 5 or 6 hats, and I'll just choose one to wear. I'll just choose one to wear until it just gets too beat up to wear, and then I'll just look in the closet, whatever small stack I have, and pick another one.
All right. What was your favorite TV show growing up?
Oof, I mean, changed all the time. I guess, the all-timer. I was in 5th grade when The Simpsons debuted, so, I have to go with that. Simpsons from 5th grade all the way through college was just a holy grail show. Obsessed about it, so, yeah, why not Simpsons?
Isotopes, right? So,
yeah, and there you go. The minor league tie-in with the Isotopes, yeah.
There it is. All right. If you could be any fictional character in a movie or TV show, who would it be?
Oh, man. Fictional character, movie or TV show? Maybe Ishmael and Moby Dick, so I could get a front row seat as Captain Ahab goes after the white whale.
That would be cool.
I'd like to see that.
It's scary at the same time, but I like it.
It's scary, but if you're gonna answer a question like that, you might as well go in for some adventure. I've been real into nautical tales in general recently, and real life sailing stories. I don't know anything about boats, but love the sailing tales. Yeah, they're really interesting.
All right. On that same note of characters, if you could be in any movie besides Moby Dick, what would it be?
In a movie. Man, why is that so hard for me to answer? I guess I never really thought about me being in a movie. In all my favorite movies, I think of the characters, and I'm like, I really wouldn't want to be in that situation. Like, I don't really want to be with Jack Nicholson at the Overlook Hotel, that kind of thing.
Such a good movie, though.
Yeah, but those are kind of my favorites. I don't know. I'd like to hang out with Method Man and Redman in How High.
Wow, that's an old school right there.
That was my favorite movie for a number of years. Still an all-time comedy, overlooked for sure.
Yeah, we're around the same age, you and me, and yeah. Good movie. All right, couple more here, and I'll let you go. If you could work at a zoo, okay, which animal would you want to work with?
I don't know. Part of me wants to say a real smart animal, but then I'd probably start to feel bad that it was in captivity.
Yeah.
So maybe a real interesting one, like a platypus. Really get to know a platypus because those are weird. They lay eggs. They're mammals. They're all strange. I'd like to learn about something.
Very true.
I'd like to learn about something that seems almost alien. Give me a greater sense of appreciation for the animal kingdom.
Right, a platypus. I like it. All right, last one. Where was it? There it is. What was your first job?
First real job was washing dishes at a retirement home. Did that from sophomore year and then all the way through like summer breaks and holiday breaks in my first couple years of college. I loved it. It was called utility. We were washing dishes, but we were back end workers in the kitchen. We were the utility crew. Wore cool blue uniforms. Yeah, I loved it. I still sometimes think that I'd like to have a job like that again, just like 5 hours a week, just to like do work that just like starts at a certain time, ends at a certain time, and it's all just
done with it.
Yeah, I kind of romanticize it. I kind of liked it.
Ben, thank you so much for doing this. This is a lot of fun. Where can people find you on the social? See, we're going to push you to do more social now. Yeah,
well, maybe I'll get the blue sky eventually. I'm still on Twitter or X at Ben's Biz, Instagram, the Ben's Biz. I've got my newsletter, The Baseball Traveler, which used to be the Ben's Biz Beat. Articles on MLB.com, MILB.com, the weekly show before the show podcast. So it's kind of all.
You can find you pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, I'm around. If you Google my name and minor league baseball or Ben's Biz and minor league baseball or whatever, you'll find something or other. Often I'm writing a story and I'm trying to find some information to verify something, and then I find my own stuff. And I'm like, I've been doing this too long. I just have to use myself as a source now.
There you go. We got a couple people that can help you out with that. So, we'll give us a call. We'll let you know.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, man, thank you so much for doing this. Again, and for everybody, make sure that you guys are going on YouTube channels for both Val and our channels. You're still on Blue Sky, aren't you, Val? Or did you close that one? Yeah, you didn't do it. Yeah, it's not really picking up. So, but we are on Twitter, we are on TikTok, and on Threads as well. So make sure you guys catch us there. We will see you guys next week. Until then, support the minor leagues.
This podcast is part of the Curved Brim Media Network. Here are some of the other members of Curved Brim Media.
Hi, this is Kelly Robinson, the Minor League Nerd. My YouTube channel explores the history of minor league baseball teams. More than just stats, we delve into team lineage, sharing stories from current franchises to obscure one-year wonders.
I'm Paul Caputo, and on the Baseball by Design podcast, I talk to minor league baseball teams, designers, and other super interesting people about what these minor league baseball logos mean, and I talk a little bit about ice cream helmets.
What's up, Bucketheads? I'm Anna DiTomaso, and each week on the Baseball Bucket List podcast, I speak with a different fan about their favorite baseball memories, what the game means to them, and what's left to check off on their baseball bucket list.
Hey everyone, it's Eric from the great state of Kansas.
This is Johnny from the New Orleans Baby Cakes Memorial Museum.
And we are the Earn Fun Average podcast,
where we talk to a variety of guests about their love of baseball and have fun doing it.
America, lower your standards.
Average is what we do best.
This is Patrick
and Corey
of baseballmapper.com. And we have made an interactive map to help highlight all baseball teams from the majors down to collegiate summer leagues.
We want to bring you closer to baseball. So get on the site and find a team near you today.
Hey guys, this is Patrick Larson from the Minor League Baseball Hat History Series. And in every episode, I go through the history of minor league teams through my personal collection of hats. You can find me on Twitter at @PatLarson1. I hope you guys enjoy.
Learn more about Curve Brim Media at curvebrimmedia.com.